Hi everyone. This was supposed to be a live event and it did happen, but it didn't record. So we're going to do this again. My name is Tara Jolly and many of you know me by now, but I'll do a quick introduction. I have been ascending since 2014, or consciously ascending since then, and I passed the 7th initiation 3 years ago now. And I now embody my higher self, Anitri. He is a 5th ray master of healing, knowledge, and truth. And he is here to give us the courage to face our lower self stuff, to uncover all of our fears and our darkness and our lower self limitations in order to find our fullness in our divinity. Anitri is all about action and being and doing and helping people bring their spiritual ideals into everyday 3D life. And he's also quite funny. He has a big sense of humor. He wants to remind us to have fun. He says to take this all seriously, but don't take it too seriously. And to remember the big picture of what we're all really doing here, which is, of course, ascending. And he is also here to help us move from our minds to the heart and to live from the heart. So Anitri works through me, and together we offer life and ascension coaching to high initiates and other spiritual people who are wanting to find their personal power and embody their own higher self. But life was not always this way. So today I want to share with you where I was and who I was before I embodied Anitri, how my lower self fears and limiting beliefs almost stopped me from completing this mission, how I overcame them, and what I learned is needed in order to embody higher self, and what life is like now, embodying Anitri and 3 years after the 7th, how things have changed. So I want to start by giving a disclaimer that Ascension is different for everyone. Today I will share with you a lot of my personal story, but what's true for me might not be true for you. So always use your own discernment in all things. And another note is that all of us are a work in progress. We are always learning and growing and refining and cleaning and clearing ourselves. There is no finish line. There is no stage of completion. As long as you are in a body, you will be the imperfect being. We strive for that divinity. We strive for that perfection, but this is an ongoing process. So to tell you how life is like embodying higher self, I have to tell you about what life was like before. So I lived a very typical life in Midwestern United States. Grew up in Wisconsin. And it was in my mid-20s that I started to wake up. And my introduction to my own consciousness really came through the Law of Attraction teachings by Abraham Hicks. This is the idea that we create our own reality. So this was a very exciting turning point for me, realizing my power as a creator in my own life. And this led me to a lot of different things. Eventually, I found myself at a yoga festival where I had a theta healing from a woman. And I still don't understand exactly what happened in that healing, but it really catapulted my ascension. I had a huge energetic release. I suddenly became very clear on what I needed to do and what was not working in my life. And it gave me the courage to make drastic changes. It was just very clear to me what I needed to do. It was a knowing that I couldn't even describe. I just knew. And I really credit this healing for giving me that. In this healing, she mentioned spiritual ascension. And this was the first time that I had ever heard this term. So I am reading everything I can about ascension after this point, and I'm experiencing every ascension symptom you could think of after this healing. And this is when I really made some big changes in my life. So I was working as an accountant. I was married to my middle school sweetheart. We had been together for a very long time. Had a condo, had 2 cats. I had a very regular life, and I knew that I had to leave. I knew that I had to go out into the world in order to continue my growth. So a lot of things happened that opened up that possibility, and I left it behind. So I quit my job. I sold all my belongings, or most of them. I left my husband, and I found a vegan community in Hawaii that was interested in accepting volunteers to come and learn about their farming techniques. I had already been vegan for a while, so my heart was telling me this is the next thing. So I left on a one-way ticket to Hawaii and went to go live with this vegan community. Within a few days of being there, they invited me to go with them to New Zealand, where they spent half their year. And of course I said yes. There was really a courage and a momentum that had kicked in since that healing. And so I booked my tickets to New Zealand. And this whole time I was reading all about Ascension, every chance that I got. A lot was changing and moving in me. And while I was in New Zealand, living with this community, I found the Ascended Masters portal and Verna and Waiarete's website. I was on the North Island in New Zealand, and there they were. So it was just so obvious to me that this is why I was in New Zealand, and this is why all of this had happened, was for me to pursue Ascension. So I dove in head first. I got every healing, I got the protection grid, I got the shawls, I got the oils, I did everything. Luckily, I had some money given to me by my grandmother when she died, and I invested pretty much all of it into my Ascension process. While I was there, undergoing all of the healings and changes, I actually got to go visit the portal and meet Verna and Waiarete in person, which is a whole story for another day, but I will just say that it was absolutely incredible, and it gave me complete trust and faith in this path. It was my own direct experience showing me and proving me that this is the true path for me. So I ended up being in New Zealand for 6 months, and eventually I did have to return back home to Wisconsin to get legally divorced and figure out my next steps. This began the darkest period of my entire life. I was having a health crisis. I was very confused about my divorce because I still really loved my husband, but in my heart I knew that we weren't meant to be together. So it was all very confusing. My health was just a disaster. I had no money. I had spent it all in New Zealand. I had quit my job, so I had no job. I was turning 30 and I was moving in with my parents. And it was just the lowest point I've ever been. The depression lasted for a year. And there were moments where I didn't think that I would find my way out. It was very scary, and it was something that really took me over. I see now that it was healing, and I did slowly start to rebuild myself. During this time, I actually did have to go back to my corporate job, which was very difficult. Felt like I was taking a big step backwards, and it was so hard to go back into that box. But I knew that I had to heal, so that's what I did for the next year. When I eventually started to come back, I knew once again that I had to get out. I had to leave, and that my growth was going to happen out into the world. So I saved up every cent that I could, and I turned my SUV into a camper, and I took off on a US road trip. And I had no plan whatsoever. I had no job. I had no idea what I was going to do, but I was following my highest excitement and following my heart. At the beginning of this trip, I passed the 5th initiation, and for the next 5 years, I was nomadic, and I was living a very unordinary life. I had very little money, but I was free. I felt like I was living fully for the first time. And I was having so many beautiful experiences that were teaching me about myself and about the world and about humanity and about love and about courage. And it was really getting me out of my comfort zone and pushing me to grow. I was meeting so many beautiful souls. This was like a soul family reunion. And learning so much about myself through this process. So things were happening. You know, I was learning how to trust my heart, how to trust my intuition, how to not listen to the fears and the voice of the mind, and how to just follow the heart no matter what. And things were happening. I did start working for Verna and Wyaretti as their assistant, which was such an amazing opportunity. And I did some online work, so I was making enough money to kind of keep it all going. I started a vegan marketing company to, promote vegan food at festivals and health food stores and stuff. So life was good, and things were unfolding. But I was really kind of coasting through my ascension. I was not connecting with my higher self in my sacred heart, my holy heart. During this 5-year period, I did pass the 6th initiation, but I wasn't really developing the communication with my higher self that I needed to. I wasn't in my sacred heart and holy heart. To be honest, I didn't even realize how important the sacred heart and the holy heart are to this whole process. I was progressing in my ascension percentage-wise, but I knew that I was still playing it pretty small. I knew that there was a lot more to all of this that I wasn't doing. So Tara was still running the show. My lower self was still running things quite a bit. So who is Tara? What was she like? Because I can tell you from this point, she is like a different person than I am now. She is like a completely different being than who I feel like today. And so much so that I will talk about her in the third person, So I'll tell you a little bit about her, and then I'll tell you how life is like now. So Tara was very quiet, very reserved, and fiercely private. She was a behind-the-scenes person. She did not want to be seen. She did not want to be heard. She did not want to cause a disturbance or cause a scene. She had a very hard time sticking up for herself. And she would do anything to maintain peace, or really the illusion of peace. So she had a very hard time looking at her own dysfunction, her own limitations, her own darkness. She had a really hard time confronting things that were not okay or not working for her. She accepted treatment from other people that she did not deserve. She would do anything to maintain this positivity or this illusion of positivity. So she was, really chasing after acceptance and resolution that was really not being offered. She was always trying to kind of manage the situation, keep things under control. And she was very much kind of privately ascending. There wasn't a lot of people, or really anyone in her life, that knew about her ascension. It was very much a secret, really. And she had a really hard time speaking publicly or being out there in any sort of way. She did not want to be seen at all. And she was living in isolation for those last, those years through the 6th. I was very isolated from the world. I was living out in the woods in Florida and just not interacting with anyone. She had some addictions that were present in her life. And she was in relationships, romantic and otherwise, that were not serving her, that were dysfunctional. And it was, the same relationship pattern again and again and again, in friendships, romantic relationships. So there was lessons that were coming, but she wasn't able to see them, or she didn't want to see them. She was unwilling to confront them. So she was also very hard on herself. She demanded perfection and was very hard on self, as we all are, really. So there was a turning point then when I realized that I had to leave my romantic relationship. It was one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do, because I, again, really loved this person. But my heart was telling me that this relationship was holding me back, and that I had to go out into the world. I had to experience things. I had to interact with people. I had to leave this situation. And by this point, I had really learned how to trust my heart, trust my intuition. Even when it didn't make sense to my mind, or even when it wasn't exactly what I wanted. If my heart was leading me somewhere, I had learned how to listen to that. So after a lot of dragging my feet, I did leave that relationship, and this was a turning point. After this, I went to Thailand for the first time, and at the end of my trip, I found Koh Phangan, which is the island that I live on now. And while I was here, my intuition hit me like a ton of bricks that I have to return to this place, that there is something here for me, big, there's something that I need to do here, that I have to come back. And so 9 months later, I did exactly that. I returned to the island. And within 10 days of being here, I met my now partner, Neve. And in addition to being the love of my life, he also introduced me to life coaching. And he had been a coach for a number of years, and he kept suggesting to me that I should put myself out there as a coach. as a life coach. I had, changed my life quite a bit over the years. I had learned a lot about manifestation and laws of the universe and how to direct our experience here. And he thought I should be sharing that with others. But of course, this is absolutely terrifying to Tara and not something that Tara wanted to do at all. But luckily for her, Neve was very persistent. And I see now that Neve's higher self and my higher self, they definitely brought us together for a bigger purpose, even beyond just love. So Neve had an old client that came back to him with a question, and he asked me if I would talk to her. He said, hey, I think you could really help her. It's just manifestation stuff, like no big deal, just a really casual call. And I was like, okay, yeah, whatever, sure. It was really no pressure situation, and I connected with my higher self before that call. I did ask my higher self to channel through me and to speak through me and to deliver the message to this person that they needed to hear most at this time with as much love as possible. So what happened on that call was pure divinity. My higher self came through me and channeled through me and worked through me, speaking to this woman, and delivered her such a profound message that she cried. And it was the most beautiful experience of divinity that I had ever had. It wasn't really me. It was like my higher self showed up in a way that I had not experienced before in service to this woman. And it was undeniable that this is what higher self wanted to do. So it became clear to me then that I had to do this life coaching thing. But wow, I was scared. All of my lower self fears came up for review. Fear of being seen, fear of being heard, fear of using my voice, fear of failure, fear of disappointing others, fear of not knowing what I was doing, my self-worth. Who am I to offer something like this? Who am I to say that I can help people? Just all of this stuff around worthiness and fear. So this is when the battle between my lower self and my higher self really began. And it was a battle. So Neve wanted me to put a offer out on Facebook to give a free call to anyone who was interested in changing their life, to kind of start this life coaching thing. And I felt in my heart that higher self wanted us to do this. I knew what had just happened with the woman, but I was not doing it. It was weeks and weeks and weeks of Neve kind of pushing me to put myself out there, and I wasn't doing it because the fear was so intense. And eventually I realized that I was never going to be able to unravel this fear ahead of time. That I had to just do it. I had to take a leap of faith. I had to take action while the fear was still present. And so eventually I did, and I offered a free call to anyone interested, and I got 20 free calls, and from those calls I got 7 paying clients. And this is when my higher self really started working through me and channeling through me and delivering real results to my clients. And this was just amazing to me because I would not really prepare for these calls. I didn't really have an idea of what we were doing. I didn't really know exactly how this was all going to go. But every single time my higher self came through, every single time something fantastic occurred. Healing was occurring. People's lives were changing every single time my higher self showed up for this. And I began to trust more and more. But all those fears were still present. They did not disappear. They started to get a little bit less and less, but they were still there. So here is what I have learned about how to overcome these fears, how to really overcome them, and how to clean and clear these lower self-limiting beliefs and patterns, and what we really need to do to fully embody higher self. So first, it starts with forgiveness. Forgiveness for ourselves. Compassion for our humanity. Softening our judgment towards ourselves. Moving towards self-acceptance and self-love. You know, we are going to be imperfect as long as we are in a body. We are not supposed to be perfect. So accepting where we are, accepting where we're starting from, accepting that this is part of the program, is that we are going to have these lower self things. You know, our resistance is usually our biggest barrier to our growth. You know, so just kind of embracing where we are while also moving towards more. And, you know, realizing that it's never too late. I mean, for me, it was a year and a half, you know, sometime after the 7th, that's when I really got serious about embodying higher self. Before that, I was pretty much just coasting. And I wasn't really dedicated to it fully. And now that I've talked to a lot of other high initiates, I see that this is true for a lot of people. You know, we don't know what we know until we know it. So it's never too late for you. You're not a failure if you're not embodying higher self right now. Even if it's years past the 7th, you can always start. You can always begin. The other thing that I learned is that I had to say goodbye to my lower self. And not the good parts of Tara. There are many good parts of Tara that still remain. It's not like my entire personality got wiped out. But I had to say goodbye to the timid, insecure, private, scared, behind the scenes person. And it really is like a death. You know, we have to grieve and process this letting go, just like any other letting go. Even if we're ready to let go and we want to move forward with higher self, we have been our lower selves for a very long time, you know, so it's normal to feel some grief around that. Give yourself some time to move through that. The other thing is devotion to higher self and putting higher self above all others as your greatest healer and your greatest teacher. And this means letting go of outside healers and outside teachers, letting go of old beliefs and old systems and old modalities that are no longer serving you as a 6th or 7th initiate. These higher stages of ascension require you to go within, to your own master inside. And this is another letting go, you know, that requires some time and some processing. I was lucky in that I had found the ascension path really early on in my awakening process. And I went to the portal in person and had those experiences. So for me, this has really been my only path ever since then. So I didn't have a lot of letting go of outside teachers, but this is one of the biggest things that I see holding people back, in the higher stages of ascension is the refusal to let go and to go within. So this is really important. The other thing is developing your communication with higher self and giving devotion to your higher self in an active way. This happens in your sacred heart and your holy heart. And I will be honest, I did not realize how important the sacred heart and the holy heart were or are for a long time. I didn't understand that that is really the beginning of it all. The sacred heart and the holy heart are the doorways to it all. So finding your sacred heart and then eventually finding your holy heart and connecting with your higher self there is of absolute importance on this path. If you're having trouble with that, please send me an email. I have a free guided meditation that I can give you to help. I can give you some pointers. This is really where it all begins. So this is so important. Now, developing communication with higher self, this is different for everybody. You know, I do not have natural psychic abilities to see and to hear, but you don't need them. But you do need to spend some time learning how to communicate with your higher self and receiving the guidance that higher self is here to give you. It will be different for everybody, but trust that your higher self is going to come and meet you in a way that you can understand, in a way that you can reach. The other thing is that, you know, your free will is always going to be honored. So you, the lower self, are still directing this process. Higher self can heal you and clear your negative patterns and work all of this amazing magic, but you have to ask for it. You have to always ask. Higher self is not just going to swoop in and take care of everything for you. It is not automatic. It takes a conscious and deliberate doing of the lower self. So there's other things as well. You know, we have to keep our energetic bodies clear. There's some energetic maintenance. You know, there's a lot more to this, but that's where it begins. Now, the clearing of negative patterns is something that your higher self can do for you once you reach 30% higher self embodiment. And it's a very simple process. It's really just going in and asking. Being able to see the patterns is the first step, of course. And this does a lot to clear all of our past lives, all those patterns that carry through leading up to today. But I have found that there's a secondary practice that has helped me a lot in transforming my fear and moving past my limitations. And this is not mindset work. This is not change your thoughts to change your reality. The law of attraction is great, and we can do a lot with that, but if it was so simple to change your thoughts to change your reality, I think we'd all have a lot more of what we wanted, right? So there's a reason why this isn't really working for people. And part of that is because it's quite difficult to manage your thoughts all day long. I mean, even experienced meditators have, you know, it's a practice to do this. And there's a lot going on in our lives. We're very busy. We have kids and jobs, and we still have to feed ourselves and, you know, take care of ourselves. And there's a lot going on. So it's quite difficult to just manage your thoughts all the time. So what I realized when I shared that post on Facebook offering my free call to everyone, what started my coaching career, was that the action of doing that was going against my fear. It was going against my limiting beliefs that I wasn't good enough, that I was didn't know what I was doing, that I was going to be a failure, that, you know, all on and on and on. The action of doing it is going against all of these things. And in the action, the action sends a message to the subconscious mind that all those fears and limiting beliefs are no longer valid because you are doing the thing that you're supposed to be afraid of. So why would we hold on to this belief? And the action sends the message. The subconscious mind will eventually drop the belief. Not right away, not fully, not immediately, but the action starts to rewire the subconscious, the belief system, which is then going to alter your life and your reality and your experience going forward. So this is sort of like a reverse law of attraction. We're not trying to change the mind first. We're starting with the action, which then changes the beliefs and the mind. So this is a very important piece of the puzzle, that we cannot get rid of these fears ahead of time. We have to take actions that are outside of our comfort zone in order to grow. And that is one of the biggest truths that I want to share with you, is that you cannot grow and expand and change and stay comfortable. It just does not work that way. You have to be willing to lean into your discomfort, lean into your fears in order to change them on a foundational level. But I'm sure you're asking yourself now, well, yeah, but isn't this all still really terrifying? Do I have to just get through it with sheer willpower? And what do you mean? I just have to do it? That's it? And no, there is another practice that I have learned that helps to deal with that fear in the moment, to move it up and out of the body, to actually allow it to be there, to turn and face it, and move it right then and there in the present moment. See, higher self is helping, higher self is helping to clean up so much of the past. And this other practice that I am now teaching in my coaching is helping us to deal with these things right here in the moment. So these two things combined are what have really helped me overcome my fears and my limiting beliefs. And it is a process, it's not complete and automatic and full right away, but it gets easier and easier and easier over time. And soon you will be doing things that you never would have thought possible. But it has to start with one step forward, leaning into that fear. And when we can trigger these fears in a conscious way, in a deliberate way, we can work with them much more effectively. Most of the time in life, our fears are coming at us as life happens. We're not expecting them. We're not prepared for them. And we're just sort of reacting out of instinct. We're just trying to survive. So it's a very unconscious experience. But when you can take deliberate actions, knowing that it's going to be scary, you can approach this process in a very different way. And you can see it coming. And you can be very alert and aware. And you can move into these practices of moving these emotions up and out of the body, which is, again, more of what I'm teaching now. So I want to assure you that your fears and your lower self limitations can and will be dissolved if you choose to pursue this. If you would have told me a few years ago that I would be doing this type of work and I'd be sitting here talking to you now in this way, I would have never believed you. My lower self, the old Tara, this is never something she would have done. So change is not only possible, you are built for it. The nature of reality is constant change. And the biggest thing now at these high initiations is that you have your higher self here with you. You have an ascended master living in your body to help you heal and clear and grow and expand and become more of your divinity, more of your higher self here on earth. So you have a very unique position here on this planet now with your higher self. And I want to assure you that you can transform your lower self limitations. And you will. But it does require action and dedication on your part. So, I told you a lot about the old Tara, and now I want to tell you about what life is like embodying my higher self. I'm now 3 years past the 7th initiation, and I am working very closely with my higher self in my coaching, and we are connected now in a whole new way. And I can tell you that life is vastly different than it used to be. I am more the observer. I am able to sort of separate. This is hard to describe. It's like I'm not as reactive. I'm seeing things from a higher perspective. I am still here in the physical world experiencing things, but I'm living from my heart. I'm not so much in my ego or in my reaction or in my mind. My ego is still there, and yours will be too. As long as we're in bodies, we're going to have egos. But if my ego does act up, I can see it immediately. I can spot it. I know what's happening. It's almost like somebody else is playing a role right in front of me, and I'm witnessing it. And I can move into, what is the lesson? What is this here to teach me? What is this here to show me? The clearing practices, asking higher self for healing, all of that. So that is happening. I have much more unity consciousness. So I see the good in every person. I feel like I have so much love for everybody. Even when they're not acting in nice ways, I feel like I can see beyond to their Christ light, to the good in them, to the divinity in them. I can see that this is just their human suit, their ego, their persona in this lifetime. I find it very easy to have compassion, to love, to forgive. I accept that everyone's on their own path and that these paths look very different, that they're all on their own cycle of ascension. So loving comes very easily. It's my default state. I have less filter too. So giving love and speaking truth comes pretty quickly. It's not being filtered. There's no kind of hesitation to do that. And sometimes people do think that I'm a bit crazy because I'm a little bit maybe too loving for them. But that's okay. And I'm not worried about current events. As we all know, the world is a very chaotic and intense place to be right now. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of destruction. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of suffering. But I feel in my core a deep peace about everything. I feel I have so much faith and trust in the bigger tapestry of this universe that we're all in, and in the light. I feel that everything that's happening now is the destruction of the old ways, the old systems, the old way of being, and it's a necessary part of our evolution. So I feel a sense of peace around everything that's happening now, and I know that can sound like a little bit disconnected or a little bit not compassionate, but the light is really rooted in me. So I know, I trust. I still don't have natural psychic abilities, but my knowing has increased. My intuition has increased tremendously since really embodying higher self. I know exactly what is for me, what is not for me, what way to go, what our next step is. I can have some like kind of predictions of things that are going to happen sometimes. I know what other people are feeling. I know when people are lying. You know, truth stands out like so easily. So those abilities have gone up quite a bit. And, you know, I'm not triggered as much. It still happens, of course. I mean, like I said, we are always in process. But it doesn't happen as often. And when it does happen, I can see it for what it is, which is a lesson for my growth and my expansion. I can feel it. I can move through that experience. I can clear it. I can heal it. It's a very kind of like boom, boom, boom now. I don't feel like I'm a victim of life or a victim of my circumstances or my situation or of other people. Everything is here to teach me more about who I really am and to bring me back to love and to divinity and to show me those areas that I still need to clean and clear, you know? Even though I still do a lot of work on my lower self and my fears and all that, it's still happening, it's still cleaning, but I am less focused on myself and I am more focused on other people, around service to others. So that's been a big shift. You know, every higher self has a mission. Your higher self has a unique mission for you. It might not be working with humanity, but you don't know yet. But my higher self is really here to help people embody their spiritual ideals, embody their higher self. And so, you know, my coaching business has really taken off and we are working with humanity a lot. So this has been a big shift from self to other. And I'm no longer afraid to shine my light and to be seen. I'm not afraid of the judgment of other people. You know, if you would have told me a few years ago that I'd be sitting here doing this kind of stuff, I would have never believed you. I mean, this is a huge shift for Tara. And there's not fear there anymore. So that's a really big change. You know, I just have like really no interest in things that aren't heart-based. I don't want to be around violence or like there's a lot of stuff that it's just not for me. I'm very much about like heart-based connection all the time. Small talk is kind of like I'm always trying to really go deep. Just like this is different for everybody, but I require much less sleep than I used to. I require much less food than I used to. My higher self definitely has some food preferences, although not all of them do. And really the biggest change since passing the seventh, and really coming to embody my higher self, is just the trust and the knowing that the trust and the knowing in my higher self, that my higher self knows the way for us. I know with absolute certainty that I will be taken care of on this path, that I will be assisted on this path, that my higher self is going to bring to me exactly what I need when I need it, connecting me with the right people, giving me the right tools, that higher self knows the way, and all I have to do is stay dedicated and listen and clean and clear my lower self and follow my higher self, and I will be led to the highest heights imaginable. So this knowing and this trust in higher self is such a different way of operating in the world. You know, my decisions in my life, what I'm doing, it doesn't make sense to a lot of people. They think I'm a little bit crazy maybe, but they're also baffled at how all of this is just working out. And that's the thing, is like, when you've got your higher self with you and higher self is leading the way, it will unfold easily. There will be, you're not going to have a lot of the typical challenges that can occur. You know, the work and the challenges is really just cleaning and clearing your lower self and facing your own lower self stuff. That's the real work. The rest of it, higher self is going to provide so much magic and assistance to you. And that is really, I think, the biggest change, is shifting into that total relaxation and total knowing and trust in my higher self. And it's a really wonderful way to live. And if I can do this, you can do this. These obstacles can and will be dissolved, but it does require you to take action. And so if you are feeling stalled in your ascension, if you are feeling stuck, if you are repeating the same patterns, the same behaviors, the same life scenarios, if you are unsure about the practices that are needed right now, if you are unsure if you found your sacred heart and your holy heart, if you want more accountability for you actually showing up and doing these things, I invite you to book a free call with me so we can talk more about it. I have another round of my Embody Your Higher Self group course that's starting next week. So you have 4 days to book a free call if you're interested in joining that course. Let's just talk about it. Let's see what's going on with you and where I might be able to help. We'll see if this makes sense for you. And I also work with people one-on-one. So this free call is my gift to everyone. Even if we don't choose to go forward together, I know that we will share something beautiful on this call. And Anitri and I are here to support you. So I will put a link to book that call down below. And we had some questions on the live call that unfortunately did not get recorded, that I think I'll do a separate video about. There was some great questions that got asked. So I will, I'll do that another time. But thank you so much for being here and connecting. And please feel free to contact me anytime if you want some help with your own ascension and your own process. Anitri and I are sending you all so much love and fifth ray support energy. Contact us anytime. Bye for now.